The sun was starting to set over Willow Creek as Mia walked into her cozy little kitchen. The scent of freshly baked cookies still lingered in the air, a sweet reminder of her afternoon baking spree. She had spent all day preparing a special dinner for Ethan, her boyfriend of 2 years. They had their ups and downs, but lately things had been looking brighter. As she placed the last batch of cookies on the cooling rack, Mia's heart danced with excitement. Tonight was supposed to be perfect. They planned a romantic dinner, just the two of them, surrounded by the flickering glow of candlelight. Mia hummed softly as she set the table, laying out the good dishes and pouring sparkling water into 2 glasses. She'd even picked up a bouquet of wildflowers from the farmer's market earlier in the day. It felt like magic was in the air. But as she placed the final flower in a small vase at the center of the table, her eyes were drawn to a folded piece of paper resting near Ethan's chair. Curious, she walked over and picked it up. At first it looked like a simple note, a quick reminder, or perhaps a sweet message from Ethan. But as she unfolded it, an unsettling feeling crept up her spine. The first thing she saw was a bank logo at the top. Her heart raced. She recognized it instantly. It was the logo of the bank where she and Ethan had opened a joint account only a few months ago. Mia took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. Maybe it's nothing, she whispered to herself. But the knot in her stomach only tightened. She scanned the note. It was brief, just a few lines scribbled in Ethan's familiar handwriting. "I'm sorry, Mia, I can't do this anymore. You deserve better." A wave of disbelief washed over her. A cold chill ran through her. Was this some sort of joke? She felt her pulse quicken. Thoughts raced in her mind, wondering what could have possibly led him to write this. Suddenly, a barrage of emotions flooded her: confusion, anger, heartbreak. Mia stared at the note, trying to make sense of it. They had been talking about moving in together. They were planning a vacation. None of it made sense. Her mind spun back to their last conversation. They had laughed, shared dreams, and made plans for the future. How could things change so quickly? Suddenly, she felt hot tears prick her eyes. She glanced around the room as if Ethan might walk in at any moment and explain everything. But the room felt empty. Echoes of laughter and joy turned silent. Mia's thoughts drifted back to the cookies she had baked. The sweet smell that had filled the air now felt like a cruel reminder of her shattered expectations. She whispered, tears now streaming down her cheeks. She wiped them away, angry at herself for feeling this way. She had trusted Ethan completely. They had shared so much late-night talks, countless adventures, and even quiet moments wrapped in each other's arms. Her thoughts fixed on the bank logo again. Why was that there? Was there something else she didn't know? Questions buzzed in her mind like bees, each one sharper than the last. Had Ethan taken money? Was he leaving her in debt? Or was this just a callous way to end things? Mia rushed to the living room where Ethan usually kept his things. The coffee table was cluttered with his shoes, an old magazine, and a half-empty coffee cup. She turned over the magazine, hoping to find some clue, some sign, anything that could explain the simple, painful words she had just read. But there was nothing, just the usual range of Ethan's interests: sports, travel, and the latest tech gadgets. Then her eyes caught sight of an envelope peeking from underneath the couch. It looked slightly crumpled, a hint of urgency lingering in its folds. With shaky hands, she pulled it out. The return address was unfamiliar, and her heart raced again. What could it be? An old bill, a letter from a friend? Mia sat down heavily on the couch, her mind racing ahead. She opened it, and inside was a bank statement. Her heart sank as she scanned it quickly. Several large withdrawals over the last few weeks. There were numbers there that didn't add up. She felt like the ground beneath her was crumbling. Had he been spending money without her knowledge? Was he keeping secrets from her? Mia's emotions erupted like a volcano. She felt betrayal burn through her chest, raw and intense. How could he do this? They had promised each other to be open and honest. She stared at the statement, gripping it tightly, her knuckles turning white. She could hardly breathe as the realization hit her. Ethan had been hiding something significant. Where was he now? What was he doing? Every second that passed felt like an eternity. Mia couldn't sit still any longer. With a heavy heart, she grabbed her phone, fingers trembling as she searched for Ethan's number. She needed answers. Dialing his number, her mind raced. It rang, and she could hear her heartbeat pounding in her ear. Just as she prepared herself to leave a message, she heard his voice on the other end, cheerful and relaxed. "Hey Mia, I'm just wrapping up here." The sound of his voice ignited a flurry of emotions. Anger collided with sadness. Love felt intertwined with betrayal. "Ethan," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "We need to talk." Okay." His voice became cautious, like he could sense the urgency in her words. "No, everything is not okay." There was a pause, heavy and thick. Then she heard him let out a slow breath, as if he were trying to prepare himself for what was coming. "Mia, I didn't mean to hurt you." "No, I can't wait. You need to tell me what's going on. Just wait for me. I promise I'll explain everything," he replied, his tone shaky. At that moment, Mia's heart felt like it was breaking all over again. "Ethan," she said, feeling a layer of anger fuel her resolve. "You left me a note with a bank logo on it. This isn't just about us anymore." Okay, his voice faltered. "I'm on my way." She slammed the phone down, tears spilling over again. She felt the walls closing in on her, suffocating her with despair. The smell of cookies that had once signified warmth felt hollow now. She glanced at the dinner she'd prepared. The effort she'd put in felt wasted. Mia faced the window, watching the sun dip below the edge of town, darkness beginning to creep in. She needed to think. She needed clarity. She couldn't help but reflect on their relationship. The good times danced in her mind, but shadows lingered too. There were moments of casual secrecy. Ethan sometimes took longer to answer texts, or he seemed detached during phone calls. Little things, she chalked them up to stress, but this felt monumental. The door swung open with a soft creak, and Ethan stepped inside, looking tenser than she'd ever seen him. His casual smile faded when he saw the look on her face. "Mia," he began, but she cut him off. He hesitated, running a hand through his hair, his eyes darting around the room like he was searching for the right words. "Please, Ethan, just be honest with me." He looked down, and for a moment the silence wrapped around them like a heavy blanket. Then he took a deep breath, his voice trembling. "Okay, I wanted to surprise you," he admitted. Mia's voice shot through the room like a bullet. "You took money without telling me. That's not a surprise." I know, I was trying to plan everything out so it could be a perfect moment," he explained. "But I messed up. I didn't want you to think I was being shady, I thought I could surprise you with a proposal." Mia recoiled from the words, struggling to process them. "A ring? You thought that was a good idea." "I made a mistake," he said, desperation creeping into his voice. Mia felt a whirlwind of emotions tearing through her. Could she even begin to understand what he was trying to say? The hurt, the anger mixed with a sense of disappointment. "Ethan, you can't just take from me." "I know," he whispered, stepping closer, "and I'm sorry, I really am." Mia felt the weight of his words, but the sadness in her heart was heavy. She choked out. As she wiped her tears, she realized it wasn't just about the money, it was about the trust that was now shattered. "I need time," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan's face fell, but he nodded slowly. "I'll give you time." Mia turned away, gazing at the setting sun outside. Inside her, emotions swirled: love, betrayal, confusion. She knew that this was only the beginning of a long journey. The road ahead would be tumultuous, filled with questions and doubts, but she hoped that perhaps, along the way, they could find a way back to trust. As she stood in the half-shadowed room, the only thing she was sure of was that the love story they had together would never be the same again. The note lay there, innocently folded yet heavy with meaning, right next to the bouquet of wilted flowers at the kitchen table. It caught Jenna's eye as she entered the room, an ordinary Sunday in her cozy apartment. The sun flickered through the window, creating a dance of light and shadows across the floor. She had been humming a tune, treasuring the moment just the way she often did on weekends when she and Mark would drink coffee, plan their day, and smile at everything that felt right in the world. But this time was different. Jenna paused. The note felt out of place. Its presence sent a shiver down her spine. She walked closer, her heart pounding softly in her chest. When she flipped open the note, she immediately recognized Mark's familiar handwriting, yet the words that came into view were unfamiliar, chilling even. "I'm sorry, I left this for you. Please understand." Confusion flooded Jenna's mind, the warmth of the sun suddenly feeling cold against her skin. In that moment, everything around her seemed to blur, like an old film running out of focus. She scanned the rest of the message, her heart racing. But it wasn't until her eyes caught the bank logo stamped at the top of the note that panic surged through her veins like ice water. The logo, an emblem of the trust they had built together, a reminder of their shared future. Yet at that moment, it felt like a seal on their relationship's secrets, a question mark trailing behind their dreams. Why would Mark leave a note related to the bank? What did he mean he had to go? Everything they had felt safe, stable. Her breath quickened as she fought against the tide of emotions rising in her chest. She looked up, eyes darting to the kitchen window like she could see Mark standing there with a smile, ready to explain it all away. But he wasn't there. It was just her and that note, thick with unresolved questions. Jenna turned the note over, hoping for some hidden words of comfort to reveal themselves. Nothing. The back was blank, an emptiness that echoed the growing void in her heart. Each moment that passed felt louder than the last. She couldn't just stand there. She needed answers. Her mind raced with possibilities. Had he taken out a loan? Was he in trouble? The silence hung in the air like a heavy fog, thick and suffocating. She rushed to their shared desk, rummaging through papers and bills as if the answers would jump out at her. There were receipts, some old takeout menus, and a few pictures of their adventures, but nothing that would illuminate the weight of that note. Her hands shook as she flipped through documents, fervently searching for any sign that Mark had been struggling, anything. Was their relationship as solid as she thought? Suddenly, she stumbled upon the bank statement, a statement that hadn't been there the last time she checked. The balance was substantially lower than she remembered. Thoughts raced through her mind like a movie on fast forward. Jenna sank into the chair, feeling the world around her spin. Had he really been spending their money? In a moment of deep frustration, Jenna recalled how Mark had always been the more carefree one, the one living in the moment while she often worried about their future. But this felt different. Something was terribly off. Fighting tears, she picked up her phone, her fingers hovering over the screen, torn between calling him and letting it all fester inside her. But her yearning for answers pushed her fingers to dial. "Mark," she said, her voice shaking with a mixture of anger and confusion when he answered. We need to talk. Hey Jenna, I was just about to call you. His tone was too bright, too casual, and that only fueled her frustration. No, everything is not okay. I found your note with the bank logo. For a moment, the line went silent. The silence felt like an eternity, like droplets of water in a still pond stretching out into thousands of ripples. I didn't want to tell you over the phone, he replied finally, hesitation thick in his voice. When he said he didn't want to discuss it over the phone, it made Jenna feel like he was putting distance between them. No, you need to tell me now. Why would you leave that note? The fabric of their shared trust was unraveling. Jenna felt the weight of every moment they had built, and it felt like they were crumbling one conversation at a time. I was trying to handle it, Mark stammered, a tension creeping into his voice. Handle what? She couldn't contain the rising anger. Please just be honest with me. Did you take money? Look, I promise I'll explain everything. Just don't panic, he said, his voice soothing just like it always was, as if he could calm the storm that was raging inside of her with just a few words. Another pause ensued, a crackling silence. Okay, he finally whispered. I've been using our savings. I thought I could pay it back before you noticed. Jenna exclaimed, her voice rising higher than she intended. You took our savings and didn't think I would notice. I was trying to fix something without stressing you out. A trip, the thought sank in like a stone. This was not just about money. It exposed a deeper chasm in their relationship, different core values, different ways of handling issues, different styles of communication. A surprise. I wanted to make it special. I thought you'd understand if I explained, he pleaded, desperation bubbling in his tone. Jenna's voice trembled with hurt. Mark, trust is everything in a relationship. Once broken, it's not easily repaired. With those words, Jenna felt a rift begin to form, one where the warmth of trust and understanding used to exist. Anger gave way to sadness, and soon her throat tightened. Unhinged, she grasped at the gravity of what he was saying. You don't get it, she pressed on, pain washing through her. It's not just about the money, it's about respect. I didn't want to ruin our good time, Jenna. Help you forget. Wasn't that just a fictional escape? She felt the finality of the words hang in the air, heavy like an anvil. Silence. And then he sighed, the sort of sound that signaled he was unsure of what to say next. Too many unspoken burdens hung between them. It felt like a thick fog rolling in, creeping across the ground, numbing every ounce of warmth left in the air. Jenna squeezed the phone tightly, her heart racing. You'll come home and talk about this, right? Of course, he replied, a restraint in his tone now. I just what, Mark? The line went dead, and Jenna leaned back in her chair, emotions raging like a storm at sea. She felt like she was drifting alone in a small boat, battered by waves of doubt and disappointment. How could someone she loved turn into a stranger so quickly? An hour dragged by every tick of the clock felt like an eternity. She moved through their home, half-heartedly organizing, yet feeling like her efforts were shaking the foundation of something that was already crumbling. The smell of coffee she loved lingered, mingling with something sadder, heavier, the impending confrontation. The sound of the front door creaking open made her heart leap and twist, anticipation laced with dread. Mark stepped into the kitchen and their eyes locked. Hope shimmered, but it felt fragile, like glass ready to shatter. Jenna, he started, stepping closer. His voice was soft, almost tender. I'm really sorry. I know, Jenna replied, her voice firm yet tinged with weariness. As they sat down at the table, the very table where a note had changed everything, she felt a haunting silence wrap around them. This was the space where laughter had once flowed freely, where they'd shared moments over meals, and now it felt closed off, a fortress of hurt. I don't want your apologies, I want answers. I need you to not just tell me what you think I want to hear. I need the truth, she said, her eyes burning into his. Mark nodded slowly, as if absorbing each word. I'll show you my statements. I wasn't trying to hide it all. The shock cut through her. You call that personal, you made decisions without me. Tension hung in the air like a thick curtain, making it hard to breathe. Each moment stretched, filled with both love and resentment. Jenna thought about their dreams of intertwining lives, how trust was the very fabric holding them together. But each thread felt frayed now, dangers lurking in every corner. Mark pleaded, desperation lining his features. But you forgot about me, Jenna whispered, the words softening between them. You didn't just hide problems, you hid me from your life. The color drained from his face, the realization hitting him like a punch to the gut. He hesitated, tears glistening in his eyes. He felt the surge of emotions swirling inside her, fear, anger, sorrow, and a flicker of hope. Deep down, she knew that relationships were not built on perfection. They were built on understanding, honesty, and the will to fight through the storms together. Mark, Jenna said, her tone soft yet steady, this isn't just about money. This is about how much courage we have to face the truth together. The air thickened with his contemplation as he swallowed hard. I want that. I truly do. I've just been afraid. Then we have to start fresh, Jenna replied, her voice steady now. With honesty, communication, and more kindness, we need to rebuild brick by brick, trust by trust. In that moment, it felt like a fragile bridge had been constructed between them, one built upon honesty and vulnerability. It wouldn't be easy, but together they would find some foundation upon which to stand. As the sun set outside, a soft glow filled the room. illuminating not just the chaos of the kitchen but the two souls seeking answers in the heart of their challenges. There was a long road ahead, filled with twists and turns, but a flicker of determination sparked within them both. In that moment of reckoning, Jenna realized that their love wasn't just about the bright moments. It was also about navigating the dark, messy parts together. And as they sat intertwined in the soft light, ready to confront what lay ahead, she held on to the belief that perhaps, just perhaps, they could weather any storm together. The kitchen was quiet when Emily walked in, the kind of silence that envelops you when something significant is about to happen. The sun cast a golden hue across the table, highlighting the half-eaten breakfast from earlier. She had just arrived home from work, her mind still buzzing with tasks and deadlines, when she noticed a folded piece of paper lying beside an empty coffee mug, slightly tipped over. Curiosity tugged at her as she approached the table. Something about that note felt wrong. The way it was set there with the bank logo printed at the top sent chills down her spine. Her heart raced as she picked it up, the corners crinkling slightly in her grip. Taking a deep breath, she unfolded it, her mind racing with possibilities. Was it a reminder? Sweet note from Jake, her boyfriend of 3 years. But as she read those few hurried words, her hands trembled and the small piece of paper felt like it weighed a ton. Emily, I'm sorry, I've left for good. The truth is I've taken more than you know. Her stomach dropped, the room spun, and Emily felt like she had stepped out of reality, her breath catching in her throat. A million questions flooded her mind. What did he mean by taking more than you know? Was he leaving her? No, it couldn't be possible. They had plans, dreams, and a future. How could he vanish like this? She scanned the paper again, desperately hoping for some additional explanation. Nothing, just those few heart-stopping lines. A mixture of emotions threatened to engulf her: fear, confusion, sadness, and betrayal. The bank logo loomed over her vision, a haunting reminder that the truth extended far beyond just their relationship. Emily felt a strange vulnerability wash over her. Alone in that kitchen, she drew a shaky breath and reached for her phone, but her hands were shaking too much. Instead, she sank into a chair, the wood creaking beneath her weight. The once familiar space suddenly felt alien, like the life they had built together was unraveling with each heartbeat. She had trusted Jake completely. They had shared everything from silly inside jokes to serious talks about marriage. But now, doubt seeped in like an unwelcome guest. Looking around the room, she noticed the reminders of their life together, the photos on the fridge, the tiny succulent on the windowsill. All of it felt like a facade. Emily's mind spun back to the past few weeks. Had there been signs, moments when Jake seemed distant or preoccupied? He had been working late more often, taking calls in hushed whispers, but she had chalked it up to work stress. How could she have been so blind? She closed her eyes, trying to focus. The coffee maker hummed quietly in the background, a normalcy that clashed sharply with her internal chaos. Glancing at the bank logo again, something clicked in her mind. Did he take money? Leaning forward, her heart raced as she frantically searched through their shared documents piled on the counter. Buried beneath a stack of old receipts, she found their bank statement. Her hands fumbled with it, eyes scanning the numbers as her heart sank further. A series of withdrawals, large ones. They weren't their last month, or at least she didn't remember them. Could it all be true? Had Jake lied about his finances? What had he gotten himself into? With each withdrawal she read, a sharp pain twisted in her chest. The anger bubbled beneath the surface as the reality settled in. How could he have done this to her? A secret life that she was conveniently left out of. The warmth of her love for him began to morph into something cold and jagged. The dark thoughts coiled tightly around her mind as she battled disbelief and hurt. She thought of their upcoming trip, the romantic weekend they had planned to celebrate their anniversary. Would they even make it there now? Feeling lost, Emily rose and began pacing the kitchen, her heart pounding as she wrestled with a mix of emotions. She was furious and heartbroken, but mostly she felt betrayed. How could the one person she trusted most pull the rug out from under her like this? It felt as if the foundations of her life were cracking in real time. Suddenly, the silence shattered as her phone rang. The screen lit up with Jake's name, and for a moment everything froze. Should she answer? Rage and confusion buzzed in her chest like a live wire. She pressed the green button, realizing she needed to hear his voice to get answers, even if those answers cut deep. His voice was shaky, unnaturally quiet. His tone only fueled her anger. What do you mean, can we talk? You left me a note, Jake, a note with a bank logo. There was a long pause on the other end. I didn't want to drag you into it. Without you, her voice grew louder, her emotions surfacing like a tidal wave. You've drained our savings and disappeared. Please let me explain, he said, desperation creeping into his voice. Explain what? The pause felt like an eternity. I took the money because I was in trouble. I thought I could fix it before you ever found out. Trouble? What kind of trouble, Jake? This doesn't just happen. The words poured out like lava, each syllable a reflection of the anger and hurt swirling within her. I borrowed from the wrong people, Em. I thought I could pay them back, but it spiraled. His words hung in the air, heavy with regret and desperation. Jenna struggled to process the gravity of what he was saying. You thought lying to me would keep me safe. I'm not sure how much more you'll surprise me. I didn't run away. I thought I could fix it all. Shattered pieces of trust began to cut deeper. A part of her wanted back those days of warmth and laughter where life felt easy and bright. Instead, she was left with echoes of lies and secrets. "How could you think this would work? I deserve to know, Jake," he pleaded. "I know I messed up and now I'm paying the price. Please, help me." Her heart twisted painfully. She wanted to help. The life they shared together flickered in her mind, moments of hope and dreams unlike any other. But how could she? Shadows were creeping in where light used to shine. "Help, how can I help when you've lied to me?" Another silence stretched between them, filled now with heavy breaths. The hurt hung thick, the anguish palpable. She didn't want to lose him, but she didn't want to lose herself either. "Emily, I promise I'll do better. It's just a mess, and I thought I had it under control," he stammered. A small part of her saw the fear in his voice, the realization of what he had lost already. "It's not just a mess, Jake. This is my life too. What about us? I can go to the police," he offered, a hint of desperation creeping into his tone. "I know I messed up, but I can fix this." "The police," she replied incredulously. "You think they'll just wave a magic wand and take your problems away?" Tears welled in her eyes, a storm of emotions threatening to break free. Deep down, she wanted to believe him, to trust him once more. But could she? "Every day I put faith in you, Jake. And all I'm left with now is betrayal." He took a deep breath, the sound resonating through the phone. "I'll do anything." "Right now," she said, recalling the glimpses of laughter from before, "I need space to think." "Please, I love you, Emily," he pleaded, his voice broken. "I know you're scared, but love isn't enough when trust is broken," she said, her heart aching painfully. With that, she hung up, the words echoing in her mind. She sat back at the table, dazed by the magnitude of the conversation. The space around her felt empty, the weight of Jake's absent presence almost suffocating. Emily's heart ached as she sat in that silence once more, the half-eaten breakfast staring at her like a ghost of the past. She glanced at the note again, the words lingering in the air like a dense fog, reminders of secrets that had now seeped into their lives. Trust was a delicate thing, and while love played its part, it was respect and honesty that built the foundation. Suddenly, the lessons of this heartbreak felt clearer than ever before. If they could find a way to rebuild that foundation, perhaps one day they could rise from the ashes of this situation stronger than before. But that would take time. Time to heal, to reflect on what was real, and to confront the shadows that had intruded upon their lives. The emotional weight felt heavy, yet there was still a flicker of hope that together, through honesty and courage, they could find a way to navigate the storm ahead. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the room, Emily sat in silence, contemplating her next steps. The world outside continued to pulse with life, but in her heart she knew, no matter where it took her, she would face the journey ahead with strength and resilience. She would reclaim her story with or without Jake. Her life was her own, and she would not let shadows dictate her future. The sunlight poured into the small kitchen, illuminating the chaos that had taken root over the last few weeks. Dishes piled high in the sink, laundry strewn across the chairs, remnants of a life busy with work and stress. Emily stepped through the door, weary and worn, the weight of the world heavy on her shoulders. She had expected warmth, a familiar homecoming after a long day's work, but instead she felt an unmistakable chill in the air. As she moved deeper into the room, something caught her eye, a folded note lying next to an empty coffee mug on the table. Curiosity gripped her heart. It felt oddly out of place, like a missing puzzle piece that didn't belong. Almost hesitantly, she reached for it, her fingers trembling slightly. As she unfolded the note, her stomach dropped. "Emily, I'm sorry. I've made mistakes you don't deserve. I had to leave before it got worse." There it was, the gut-wrenching truth laid bare before her. But as she continued reading, her eyes landed on something else. A bank logo stamped at the top of the page, stark and glaring against the intimate words. Confusion washed over her. She thought, why would he leave this note with a bank logo? Panic set in as she scanned through the rest of the note, searching for more context, but there was nothing, just those jarring words that felt like a dagger lodged deep in her heart. Her thoughts raced back to the last few weeks. Jake had been distant, often lost in his own world, taking calls when he thought she wasn't listening, disappearing for hours at a time, the excuses rolling off his tongue like they were rehearsed. She had tried to reach out, to hold on to the warmth of their love, but every time she did, Jake seemed miles away. She closed her eyes, trying to focus. It was as if the world around her had faded away, leaving only that note and the sharp pain radiating through her chest. Suddenly, the cold reality of the situation flooded her senses. She had trusted him, shared her dreams with him, placed her heart in his hands. And now, with the note still trembling in her hand, she felt as if that trust had been shattered into a million pieces. Leaning back against the counter, she fought hard against the tears that stung her eyes. Her heart raced as she pictured Jake in that moment, perhaps somewhere out there, free but burdened by secrets he had chosen to carry alone. What was happening? Was he in trouble? Had he taken money? The bank logo loomed large, as if mocking her, its presence a stark reminder that significant issues lay ahead that she had no idea about. Determination surged through her. She forced herself to look away from the note, scanning the room and finally landing on the small desk where they kept their bills. She moved toward it, each step feeling heavier, almost like walking through a fog. The desk was cluttered, a mosaic of papers and bills that seemed to have taken on a life of their own over the past month. Fumbling through the mess, her fingers brushed against an envelope with the bank's name across the top. The familiar sensation of dread pooled in her stomach. "This can't be good," she whispered to herself. She tore into the envelope, heart pounding as she pulled out the bank statement. A quick glance revealed large withdrawals, all marked in red ink. Emily gasped, breath hitching in her throat. These weren't just small sums, they were significant amounts, unexpected expenditures that sat heavily on her consciousness like a stone. How long had Jake been lying to her? Confusion turned to anger as the betrayal threatened to seep deeper into her soul. In that moment, images of their life together flashed through her mind. The vacations they had planned, weekends at local festivals, quiet nights spent cooking together. Somehow all of it felt tainted now by shadows of deceit. She murmured, her heart racing as the urge to confront him pulsed within her. Taking a deep breath, she grabbed her phone and dialed his number. As it rang, she could feel the swell of emotions inside her: fear, rage, and an unbearable sadness. When Jake finally answered, she barely recognized his voice. "Emily," he began, but her fury cut through. "Explain what, Jake? That you left me a note with a bank logo." The words shot out like bullets, each laced with hurt. He stuttered, the tension palpable even through the phone. "I didn't mean for you to find out like this. Thought what? That betraying my trust would somehow make everything okay." Silence hung in the air, thick with unspoken words. Behind that silence, she could almost hear the weight of his regrets. "I was trying to protect you, Emily. Protect me by lying. I didn't steal anything, I borrowed it. I thought I could pay it back before you ever found out." Anger flared within her. The sounds of their life together, the laughter, and those moments they'd cherished, all felt like paper lanterns flickering in the wind, close to extinguishing. "You've already let me down, Jake." "Emily, no, I need you to be honest with me right now. What exactly did you take?" He hesitated, and in that silence she knew. "Maybe I borrowed some money from people I shouldn't have. I thought I could fix it before it got too complicated," he confessed. Complicated. The word hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. "What does that even mean, Jake? Are we talking about loans, or—" "Trust me, it's not what you think. I can fix this," Emily interrupted him, her voice firm and unwavering. "You're saying that now, but I don't know who you even are anymore. You've taken money without telling me. You've put us in a situation that could ruin us." He pleaded, but she already had. The click of the call ending felt liberating, yet heavy with uncertainty. She leaned against the kitchen counter, feeling utterly lost in the silence that enveloped her. The chaos of her world spun around her, but all she could focus on was the gnawing pain in her heart. She glanced at the note again, the painful apology written in Jake's loopy handwriting. It echoed in her mind like a dark omen. What had he meant by worse? The thought alone sent a cold shiver down her spine. Days turned into a blur. Emily went through the motions of her life, but felt off-center, adrift in an ocean of unanswered questions. Work became a distraction, but even in meetings, her mind found its way back to that note and the choices Jake had made without her. Each moment apart felt suffocating, the space between them now a chasm filled with shadows and uncertainty. Finally, a week later, while scrolling through her phone at the park, she noticed a notification. Jake had sent her a text. Hesitantly, she opened it. "Can we talk? I need to explain everything." She sat there for a moment, weighing her options. The flicker of hope battled against the ache in her heart. But how could they? The trust had slipped through her fingers like grains of sand, and no simple apology could rewrite the past. Taking a deep breath, she decided to respond. He replied quickly, suggesting the quaint cafe they used to visit. A place once filled with laughter and love, now shrouded in memories tainted by fear and uncertainty. Arriving there, Emily felt her heart race. The air was thick with anticipation, and as she spotted Jake seated at a corner table, his face barely lit by the golden afternoon light, emotions surged within her. She noticed the lines etched on his forehead, the way he rubbed his hands together, a picture of anxiety and regret. "Hey," he said, his voice barely above a whisper as she approached. "Let's get to it, Jake," she said, carefully taking a seat across from him. "I'm so sorry for everything," he began, his eyes searching hers for a glimpse of forgiveness. "I should have told you, and I didn't. I was scared, and that fear made me hide things from you. I thought I could handle it." The word tasted bitter on her tongue. "You stole from us and thought you could handle it all on your own. I know." "And I'm sorry," he said, desperation coloring his voice. "I never wanted to put you in this position. I spoke to some people, and they assured me that they wouldn't hurt you. I thought it would be okay." Silence hung between them, stretching and pulling, as if the very air around them was thick with unspoken fears and regrets. "You left me to deal with the mess," Emily finally said. "I had no idea what was happening. You kept the truth from me, and every time you pulled away, I thought it was something on my end," he said, desperation rising in his voice. "It was always me, my inability to deal with my problems." His words rushed forth, but they felt buried beneath the weight of betrayal. She echoed, disbelief ringing in her voice. "When you keep a part of your life hidden from someone you love," Jake's shoulders slumped. "I get it. I deserve your anger. I can't blame you for anything. A swell of emotion rose within her. She wanted to comfort him, to help him carry his burdens, but how could she? Their relationship felt like a fragile bubble, ready to burst. "I don't know if I can go back to how things were," she said softly, her heart heavy with uncertainty. "I'm ready to do whatever it takes," he pleaded. "I can show you that I can change, I can face the consequences. To be honest, I've already started to talk with those I owe money." Her thoughts raced as she searched for the strength within her. "It will take more than a promise, Jake." "I know," he replied, his expression earnest. "I'm ready to show you, I'll lay it all bare." Emily felt the tension in the air and knew the road to recovery wouldn't be easy. But in that moment, a flicker of hope ignited within her. "If we have any chance of making this work, we must be honest with each other completely. No more secrets, no more lies." "Yes," he said firmly, his gaze unwavering. They sat in silence, the world around them fading as they absorbed the weight of the moment. Hope flickered like a candle, delicate yet brave. Trust would take time and effort to rebuild, but she wasn't entirely ready to abandon their love. "I guess I'm willing to try," she said, voice steady. "I will show you," he vowed, "but more than words, I want to prove myself to you." As they sat together, navigating the fragile terrain of their relationship, Emily knew they had a long road ahead. But for the first time in weeks, the air felt lighter, a newfound sense of determination settling within her. In the vibrant cafe, as laughter and conversation swirled around them, they made a pact, not just to confront the shadows of the past, but to illuminate a future built on honesty, vulnerability, and love. The journey wouldn't be easy, but together they would face the storm, step by step, hand in hand. For now, that was enough. Their love, though bruised, was still beating, and with every heartbeat, they could still try to heal. The sunlight flickered through the kitchen window, creating patterns on the table where Jenna had shared countless breakfasts with Mark. But today was different. As she stepped through the door, the warmth of her home felt distant, overshadowed by an air of uncertainty. The aroma of last night's dinner floated in the background, mingling with something more unsettling, a stillness that made her pause. That's when she noticed it, a folded piece of paper on the table next to an empty glass. Jenna's heart raced as she approached, curiosity drawing her closer. She picked up the note and a chill crept along her spine. The unmistakable bank logo at the top sent alarm bells ringing in her mind. Why would Mark leave a note with a bank logo? With trembling hands, she unfolded it, her heart pounding with each word she read. "Jenna, I'm sorry. I've made mistakes that you don't deserve." The air around her thickened, her mind raced. She felt like she was drowning in a sea of confusion. What did he mean by mistakes? What did it mean that he had to leave? Anguish twisted in her stomach. Jenna scanned the note again, desperately hoping for more context, but there was nothing, just that disturbing message. The words echoed in her mind, a haunting refrain, urging her to confront the reality of what she read. Mark had always been her rock, the one she turned to in times of trouble. How could he just leave like this? Tearing her focus away from the note, Jenna's thoughts drifted back to the weeks before. There were signs, moments when Mark seemed distant, avoiding her gaze, taking longer than usual to respond to her texts. She had chalked it up to work stress. After all, he had mentioned some big projects at the office. But now those excuses felt like smoke and mirrors, hiding something much more sinister. The panic rose within her like a tidal wave. She glanced around the kitchen. The remnants of their life together felt suffocating. The laughter they shared here, the dreams they built together over dinner conversations, they felt tainted now. Desperate for answers, Jenna moved to the small desk in the corner, cluttered with papers and bills. She hoped to find clarity hidden among the chaos. Her hands fumbled through the papers until she found an envelope with the bank's logo. Her hands shook as she tore it open, revealing a bank statement. What she saw made her blood run cold. Large withdrawals glaring in red ink, dates she didn't recognize, amounts that felt impossibly high. The enormity of it crashed over her. She whispered into the emptiness of the room. Sinking into the chair, she felt confusion morph into fury. She had trusted him completely, shared secrets, dreams, and a life. How could he betray that trust? The fact that he had chosen to hide this from her hit harder than any accusation. She needed to confront him. Now, Jenna pulled out her phone, dialing his number with a trembling hand. As she waited, each ring intensified her anxiety, twisting her insides in knots. Finally, he picked up, and the sound of his voice sent a surge of emotions coursing through her. "Hey, Jenna." His tone had that familiar warmth, but it felt like a flimsy curtain hiding his true self. Really, now, she didn't even try to hide her anger. "Games? No, Jenna, I didn't mean to. You didn't mean to what? To lie to me, to hide money. You left me a note with a bank logo mark." Silence followed her words, weighted and deep. "Let me explain," he said slowly, his voice cracking just the slightest. "I didn't want to drag you into this." "Handle what? What are you talking about?" "You've taken money from our account without telling me. This isn't just about your secrets." His voice rose, desperation seeping in. "Protect me by lying to me. That's not protection." Each word felt sharper than the last, cutting through the air between them. "I can explain everything when I get home. Freak out. This is not just a little mistake, Mark. Jenna, just give me time," he pleaded. The conversation faded away and she hung up, feeling like she had just crossed a line she never wanted to see. Her mind raced as she stared at the walls of the kitchen, once filled with love and laughter, now morphed into a stark reminder of the life she thought they had. When Mark finally walked through the door that evening, he looked worn down, his face drawn with worry. The air between them felt charged, alive with unspoken words. He glanced at the table, eyes hitting the note she had left behind. "Jenna," he began, but she interrupted him. Just don't," he sighed, rubbing a hand across his face. "I know you're hurt. Can you? Because all I see is someone who doesn't trust me enough to tell me what's really happening," she shot back, heart racing. In that moment, she saw the flicker of regret in his eyes. I wanted to surprise you. I thought if I borrowed some money, I could cover the expenses before you noticed." Surprise, her voice trembled, a mix of anger and heartbreak washing over her. "What did you think would happen, that I wouldn't find out?" he said, desperation creeping into his tone. "Pay it back how?" Mark shifted his weight, clearly struggling with the truth. "Just a few things. Money was tight and I didn't want to stress you out." Her heart sank as she processed this. Spiraled, "What does that even mean?" "Let me explain," he said, a flicker of panic in his eyes. "I didn't borrow from just the bank. I made some bad choices. I thought I could manage it." "Fail, Mark, this is more than just failing. This is lying." "I know," he whispered, tears glistening in his eyes. There was a vulnerability there, stripped bare by his own choices. "I didn't want to lose you." "But you can't fix trust once it's broken," she said softly, her voice shaking. "I never meant to hurt you," he pleaded. "And love is supposed to be built on honesty, not deceit." Mark dropped his gaze, shame hanging heavy in the air between them. "I do." She felt the walls closing in, the weight of his betrayal suffocating her. The light in the room felt dimmer, and the laughter that once filled their lives echoed into silence. As she looked into his eyes, she knew the truth. Their love had been tested, and it wasn't just about money. It was about respect, trust, and a space where vulnerability was safe. "I need time, Mark," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I need to think about everything." "Okay," he said, his voice breaking. "I'll give you all the time you need. Just know that I'm willing to fight for us." He turned to leave the room, but Jenna's heart ached, the weight of uncertainty hanging in the air. She didn't know what the future held or if they could recover from this. But as she sat there in the dim light, she felt a flicker of resolve. Trust might take time to rebuild, but she wouldn't let the shadows entirely eclipse the love they had built. Days turned into a blur of tension and silence. Jenna poured herself into her work, finding some solace in the routine, while every night she faced an empty kitchen table, a haunting reminder of what had transpired. Mark was distant, respectful of her space, but Jenna could see the tension in his body. He was lost, too. One morning, she found herself sorting through the paperwork from their finances, trying to piece things together in the hope of understanding what had happened. What had started as a quiet reflection turned into a frantic rush, the need for clarity overwhelming her. After hours of sifting through documents, she discovered more irregularities, huge withdrawals that didn't just belong to Mark's hidden debt. It became clear that this wasn't just an accident, it was a tangled web of lies. Mark returned home that evening to find her sitting at the table, papers scattered around her like autumn leaves. "Jenna," he started cautiously, the look on his face a mix of fear and concern. "I found more," she said, her voice steady. "This isn't just about the bank withdrawals and the money you borrowed." His face paled as he slowly approached the table. "What do I mean?" "I mean, I'm starting to feel like I barely know you," she said, feeling the anger rise again. "I thought we were building a life together, but it seems like you were building walls." He stammered, eyes wide with fear. "Protect me. How is hiding the truth protection?" "Please," he begged, stepping closer. "You have to believe I was scared. I didn't want to lose you or let you down." She took a deep breath, calming the storm within her. "You don't have to handle everything alone. We're a team. We should have faced it together." As she looked into his eyes, she saw desperation, but there was also a hint of hope, a desire to make things right, to reconnect. Yet beneath that hope lay uncertainty, a question lingering like a thick fog. "I'll do whatever it takes, Jenna. I'll lay everything on the table. I don't want to lose you," he said, the sincerity flipping the switch in her heart. Just as quickly, the wall she built around her heart felt fortified. Could she take that leap of faith again? "I need to know you're ready to face the consequences," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I am," he promised, his gaze intense. "I'll take responsibility for my decisions, no matter how messy they are." They stood there in that space, the kitchen transformed from a battleground of anger to a fragile truce. Jenna took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her decision pressing against her chest. "I can't promise that things will go back to how they were," she said slowly, her heart aching. "But I'm willing to try." Hope flickered between them, fragile yet brave, like a candle fighting against a dark room. As time stretched out, Jenna realized that while hurt lingers, the chance for healing might be worth taking. Each moment was a test, but she knew love wasn't always easy. That night, as they sat together in the kitchen, the atmosphere felt different. The walls were still filled with remnants of pain, but there was also a sense of newfound determination, an unspoken commitment to face the shadows together. With each story shared, each burden lifted, Jenna could sense a fragile connection being mended. Their journey wouldn't be simple. It would take time, effort, and unwavering honesty. But as they navigated that confusing terrain together, Jenna felt a flicker of hope ignite in the darkness. For love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice to fight, to forgive, and to rebuild. In the quiet of the cautious night, they held onto that spark and ventured into the unknown one step at a time. They had faced chaos together, and now they stood ready to confront whatever lay ahead hand in hand. Trust may be fragile, but the bond they shared burned bright, a promise for 1,000 tomorrows if only they chose to nurture it. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air as Mia entered her cozy kitchen, a place that usually welcomed her with open arms. But today, something was off. A sense of unease cloaked the morning light filtering through the window, casting long shadows on the table. Her eyes fell on a small, folded piece of paper lying beside the empty cereal bowl. Curiosity gnawed at her, drawing her closer. She picked it up, her heart pounding with each passing second. The colors of the bank logo at the top sent chills down her spine. It was the same logo emblazoned on the bank card she had shared with Jake for years. Why would he leave a note like this? As she unfolded the note, dread filled her heart. The neat, familiar handwriting was unmistakable, but the words felt foreign, alien even. Mia, I'm sorry, I need to leave. I can't explain right now. Tears pooled in her eyes as she read it again, the message digging into her chest like a sharp knife. What did he mean by need to leave? Why couldn't he explain? The note felt like a puzzle missing key pieces, leaving her desperate for answers. Mia glanced around the kitchen, now feeling eerily empty. The moments they shared here cooking together, laughing over late-night snacks, planning their future, all threatened to dissolve in the face of this shocking revelation. She placed the note down, and her mind began to race. Jake had seemed distant recently, his laughter less frequent, his smiles less genuine. She had noticed him taking calls in whispers and returning home late, but she had brushed those thoughts aside. Maybe it was just work stress. Maybe he needed time to unwind after a long day. But this was a revelation that twisted her heart in ways she couldn't comprehend. Fighting against the rising tide of anxiety, she felt a swell of determination. She rushed to their small office, pushing aside the chaos of paperwork piled on the desk. Honestly, she had never liked that mess. It felt like an obstacle to their happiness. Digging deeper, she rummaged through old bills and receipts, convinced she would find something to shed light on this dark moment. And then she found it, an envelope from the bank, the same logo glaring at her with an almost mocking glare. The envelope felt thick, heavy with secrets. With trembling hands, she tore it open and withdrew the contents inside. Her heart dropped as she scanned the statement, significant withdrawals, amounts she didn't recognize, transactions that painted an alarming picture. She whispered to herself, feeling the air around her thicken with despair. These weren't just casual purchases, these felt wrong. Gritting her teeth, she rushed back to the kitchen, her mind racing faster than she could catch up. What had Jake gotten himself into? Had he been lying to her about finances? It all spiraled, the anger and the hurt mixing like toxic fumes. Staring at the note again, she struggled with the realization that Jake had chosen to keep her in the dark. Whatever was happening, it was far worse than she had imagined. She shouted into the empty room, her voice echoing back the only reply to her pain. Without a second thought, she grabbed her phone, hands shaking as she dialed his number. It rang, the sound grating against her. Each ring felt like an eternity. She needed answers. She couldn't sit idle while everything they had was unraveling. Jake's voice came through, casual yet tinged with surprise, as if he weren't aware of the storm brewing on the other end of the line. Jake, we need to talk. Her voice was a mixture of desperation and rage. He asked, but she could hear the cringe in his tone, the unwillingness to face whatever was coming. I found your note, the one at the table. Silence fell heavy between them. Okay, let's just calm down for a minute, he began, but she interrupted, heart racing. Calm down. Mia could feel her anger rising, each word emphasizing the betrayal. I can't explain right now, not over the phone, he stammered. Why does that matter? Are you serious? Did you think leaving a note was enough? I'm on my way home. We can talk then, he said, but Mia was already done with waiting. No, Jake, you don't get to walk away from this. You're in over your head and you need to face this. Please trust me, Mia. His voice softened, desperation creeping in. Or maybe you just wanted to control the narrative, she shot back, heart pounding in anger. He yelled back, frustration spilling over. She shouted, breathless, because right now all I see is a man who has run away from his responsibilities. Let me explain face to face, he begged, but she could feel the distance between them growing, a chasm filled with failure and hurt. Get home fast, Jake. The line went dead, leaving her staring into the abyss of uncertainty. Minutes felt like hours as she waited, anxiety gnawing at her. The kitchen felt foreign now, each tick of the clock stretching her patience thin. The coffee she'd brewed earlier now sat cold and forgotten like their love, and then the door swung open. Jake stepped inside, his face pale. He looked unkempt, his usual carefree demeanor replaced by a seriousness that sent shivers down her spine. Mia, he started, but she cut him off, her voice steady despite the chaos in her mind. Don't, I'm sorry, he said, his words weighed down by the truth. I know I messed up. Handle what? Tell me. I borrowed from the wrong people, he confessed reluctantly, his face betraying the fear in his heart. I thought I could pay it back before you found out. Borrowed from whom? I didn't mean to get involved, but it just spiraled out of control, he admitted, pain etched in his expression. Her heart felt heavy with disbelief. And you thought lying was better. What if I hadn't found out? But all you did was make everything worse. You've drained our savings without me even knowing. Tension hung in the air, sharp and suffocating. Jake shifted uncomfortably, struggling for words. I was scared. Less, Jake, this isn't about pride, this is about trust. I'm willing to face whatever consequences, he said, desperation creeping into his voice. I'll make it right, just. She shook her head, the anger bubbling to the surface again. I love you, Mia, please. He reached for her hand, but she pulled away, feeling raw. I hope you realize that fixing it means facing the truth, Jake. No more lies, she said, voice steady yet filled with trepidation. That's fair, he replied, his voice dropping as he stepped back. I've hurt you and I get it. The silence between them felt like a storm brewing, a whirlwind of decision and emotion swirling in the void. The tension was palpable. Would love be enough to navigate this dark moment, or would it drown in the shadows of deceit? Days passed, a haze of silence and tension choking the life they once shared. Mia immersed herself in work, trying to focus her mind on anything but the chaos at home. Each moment felt like a struggle, a battle against the memories of happier times marred by betrayal. Jake remained distant, respectful of her space but visibly torn. She could see it in the way he looked at her, his eyes searching for forgiveness, for understanding, a yearning for things to return to their former brightness. But every time she caught his gaze, anger roiled in her stomach. The nights were the hardest. The silence hung thick in the air, wrapping around them like a bad memory. The evenings that once felt like a sanctuary now felt like isolation. One crisp evening after a long day of distraction, Mia found herself sitting at the kitchen table, eyes scanning the note as if it would give her answers. She felt torn between her love for Jake and the hurt that lingered like a shadow. Trust was a fragile thing. Was there a path forward? Her heart raced as an idea began to form. She needed clarity both for herself and for Jake. Perhaps confronting the situation was the only way forward. The truth had to emerge like light breaking through clouds, and she was going to push for it. The next day, she decided to confront the issue head-on. As Jake entered the kitchen after work, she felt a surge of adrenaline. We need to talk, she said, her voice firm and unwavering. Okay, he replied, apprehension written all over him. Everything, all of this, the bank, the lies. He nodded slowly, his expression serious. All right, tell me everything, no hiding. Jake took a deep breath, his eyes meeting hers. I'll start from the beginning. I should have told you about the money right from the start, he began, his voice steadying. She listened intently, forcing herself to absorb every word. I thought I could handle it myself. Mia nodded, but you didn't. You didn't solve anything, you just buried it deeper. I know, he replied, tears glistening in his eyes, and I regret that. I wanted to protect you. Jake, that's not protection, this was deception. I do, but I want us to work through this. I love you more than anything, he said, vulnerability pouring from him. Then let's face it together. What steps can we take to make this right? He nodded, the weight of her words settling in. I will do everything possible to pay it back. I need to confront them, to face the consequences. Good, she said, feeling a shift within her. Facing the truth is a start, but we also need to communicate better. Mia felt the atmosphere shift, a flicker of hope igniting as their conversation deepened. Each word exchanged felt like a step away from despair and towards understanding. They were both willing to fight. As the days turned into weeks, they navigated the challenges together, slowly piecing together their relationship brick by brick. It wasn't easy. Trust rebuilt takes time, but they committed to the process. With each conversation came clarity, and with clarity, a sense of renewal began to form. Eventually, they sat in the kitchen once more, laughter bubbling over a meal they made together. The warmth returned as they shared stories, branching off into dreams for the future ones they had once thought lost but were slowly reclaiming all over again. With every passing moment, Mia realized that love, while complex, found its strength in resilience. They had faced the storm together, and as they leaned into each other, a sense of hope blossomed anew. With that spark, they both knew they could confront whatever lay ahead together. In the end, while shadows lingered from the past, love could be a light fierce enough to shine through the darkest of times. Mia looked into Jake's eyes and saw more than just a reflection of her pain. She saw the promise of renewal, the chance to walk hand in hand and rise above. Love, after all, is not only about joy, it's also about healing together, and for that she was willing to fight. The morning light filtered through the curtains, casting a soft glow across the kitchen table where Sarah often shared breakfast with David. Today was supposed to be just another morning, a chance to sip coffee and enjoy their routine before the rush of the day. But as she stepped into the kitchen, a shiver rolled down her spine. Something felt dreadfully out of place. Her eyes fell upon a folded note sitting silently next to an empty bowl, a knot twisted in her stomach. She walked closer, her heart racing inexplicably. What was this? Picking it up, she noticed a bank logo stamped at the top. A cold feeling washed over her. She recognized that logo all too well, the bank they had both gone to just a few weeks ago to discuss their future together. With shaking hands, she unfolded the paper, the familiar handwriting striking her like a bolt of lightning. Sarah, I'm sorry, I need to leave. Things are worse than they seem. Her heart stopped. The note was short, but the weight of those words felt like a ton of bricks pressing down on her. She whispered to the empty room, Confusion morphed into panic as she read and reread the note, desperately searching for a crumb of reassurance that was nowhere to be found. Just last night they had laughed over dinner, talking about their dreams and the life they were building together. And now this, her mind raced back over the past month, were there hints she had missed, moments of distance, the late-night phone calls, the secretive behavior. She thought of the way David had tended to deflect questions about his job and finances. Had she been blind? Had he been hiding something far worse? Feeling a mix of disbelief and betrayal, Sarah took a deep breath and glanced around the kitchen, as if the walls could offer her answers. How could David do this? Did he think leaving like this would somehow make everything better? Her mind shifted gears and suddenly she rushed over to their small office nook, pushing aside the piles of paper cluttered on the desk. She needed answers, quick. Burrowing through a stack of bills, her fingers brushed against another envelope with that same bank logo. Her heart raced as she yanked it free, tearing it open as if it held the keys to the universe. After scanning the contents, her breath caught in her throat, large withdrawals, numbers that made her stomach churn. These weren't just little spending mistakes, they were significant amounts that painted a disturbing picture. Sweat broke out on her forehead as she put the pieces together. Had David stolen from their shared finances? She murmured, hoping that the words would somehow rewrite reality. The anger began to bubble beneath her surface, and she felt fight begin to ignite within her. How dare he leave her like this? How could he hide this from her? She rushed back to the kitchen, clutching the bank statement as if it were a grenade ready to explode. She needed to confront him. Now, without a moment of hesitation, Sarah grabbed her phone and dialed his number. As it rang, her heart pounded wildly, each ring amplifying her anxiety. Finally, he picked up. His voice sounded casual, almost too casual, and that made her even angrier. She exclaimed, her voice teetering on the edge of a scream. "Where are you? We need to talk." "Sarah." He sounded genuine, and that only fueled her anger more. "I found your note, the one on the table. I also found a bank statement." There was a long pause on the other end, and she could almost hear the gears turning in his mind. "I can explain," he finally said, hesitating slightly. "Explain what? That you're running away?" "No, you don't get to just run away from this. You owe me answers," Sarah shouted, her voice rising. Okay, just don't panic. I'm on my way home now." The line went dead, and Sarah felt her heart race as she sank back into one of the kitchen chairs. Panic and rage swirled together like a storm inside her. How could he do this? A wave of mixed emotions washed over her: fear, betrayal, anger. She had opened her heart to him, laid bare her dreams and vulnerabilities, and yet he was keeping secrets that threatened to destroy everything. Minutes dragged on like hours, each tick of the clock echoing in the silence. She felt stuck, trapped between love and pain. The life they built together suddenly felt fragile, ready to shatter at any moment. When David finally walked through the door, he looked different, almost haggard. The carefree smile she had fallen in love with was gone, replaced by lines of worry etched across his forehead. "Sarah," he began cautiously. She interrupted, her voice shaky and fierce. "I never wanted to hurt you," he said, stepping closer with a pleading look in his eyes. "Protecting me," she shot back, unable to hold back the raw pain. He exclaimed, raising his hands in frustration. Sarah's heart sank further with each ebbing word. "But you made it worse," he urged. Her breaths became rapid as the anger surged again. "And what if you didn't? What if I hadn't found out?" He stepped back, the girl she loved slipping further away from him. Her voice trembled, echoing her hurt. "You can't just run from your responsibilities." "I thought we were partners, David," he insisted, desperation and sincerity saturating his tone. "I will talk to the bank, to the people I owe." Sarah found herself searching his eyes for truth. "Explain what? Your lies, your choices. This doesn't work like that, David." His hands trembled slightly, revealing his internal struggle. "I love you, Sarah." She looked away, her heart heavy in the wake of his plea. "Love isn't built on secrets and lies. It's built on trust, and you've shattered that," she said softly, pain evident in her voice. Days turned into an agonizing blur, confusion and hurt swirling inside her. Each day felt like weight heavy upon her, with Sarah trying desperately to push aside the lingering pain. David had returned home, but the emotional chasm felt unbridgeable. He often attempted to reach her, a cautious hand on her back or a gentle touch on her arm, but she would flinch away, gasping at the reminders of betrayal. It made her heart ache in ways she couldn't explain, yet as those days passed, the distance began to feel unbearable. She began missing the ways he made her laugh, the warmth of his embrace, the easy rhythm of their love. Even through the chaos, somewhere in her heart, she held on to hope, a flicker of belief that maybe, just maybe, there could be a path forward. With each moment filled with tension, Sarah found herself gaining clarity. One evening, as they sat together on the couch wrapped in uncomfortable silence, she mustered her courage. "David, we need to talk about this, no more avoiding it." He nodded, his eyes filled with remorse but also a hint of hope. "I will do whatever it takes," he promised, taking a deep breath. "Good," she said firmly. "We have to face this together. I won't allow any more secrets between us." Consequences loomed on the horizon, and they both understood that this would be an uphill battle. And so he poured out his heart, revealing the details that had frightened him, the mounting debts, the pressures he faced, the feeling of drowning that had led him down the road he never intended to take. So, he said, his vulnerability amplified, I took risks, and it all spiraled out of control. Sarah felt the knot in her chest start to loosen slightly. You should have come to me, she said, her voice softening. I know, he replied, tears filling his eyes. I was scared of disappointing you. As they talked, she realized the depth of his remorse and how his fears had clouded his judgment. Each word spoken began to weave a fragile web of connection, and over time they found their way back to trust. David asked, his heart laid bare before her. Trust takes time, but if we are honest, maybe we can navigate this, she replied slowly, feeling the flickers of hope ignite. With each passing day, they began taking tangible steps. David communicated with the bank, confronting the reality of their finances head-on. Together, they worked on a plan to clear the debts, openly discussing their fears and aspirations. It was grueling work, but Sarah felt empowered. Action brought clarity, and with each step forward, the weight of doubt began to lift. They learned how to communicate, how to create boundaries, and how to heal. Months passed, and though the shadows of the past occasionally crept in, they confronted them together. In time, the echoes of laughter returned, and the kitchen felt alive with warmth once more. One warm evening, they made dinner together, the familiar rhythm restored. They danced slightly while waiting for the pasta to boil, the tension of the past replaced with lightness. As they sat down to eat, David reached for her hand, squeezing it tightly. I'm grateful for your strength, Sarah. Trust isn't easy to regain, but I'm slowly learning to believe in you again, she said, her voice tinged with honesty. Their eyes locked, and Sarah felt the connection deepen. Love took many forms, but it was this resilience, vulnerability, honesty that made it shine the brightest. With a hope that felt genuine, they both leaned in for a kiss, repairing the cracks one day at a time. They were different now, but they were stronger for it. That love wouldn't crumble under the weight of past mistakes. And in the soft light of that kitchen, surrounded by a renewed sense of warmth, they dared to dream of a brighter future. It wasn't perfect, nor was it without its complexities, but they had taken the steps needed to face their fears and emerge transformed. Together they embraced the journey ahead, no longer fearful of shadows, but fueled by the light of their hard-won trust. After all, love isn't the absence of challenges, it's the strength to face them together, and that was a truth worth fighting for. The sunlight streamed through the window, casting a warm glow across the kitchen table, which was set for one. Mia had expected it to be a romantic evening with Jake, her boyfriend of 2 years. After a long week apart due to work obligations, she had planned a special dinner, complete with their favorite pasta and a bottle of red wine. Everything looked perfect, but something felt off. As she walked into the kitchen, a folded piece of paper caught her eye, resting next to an empty plate. Mia's breath caught in her throat. It wasn't there when she had set the table earlier. She picked it up, her heart racing. The logo at the top was unmistakable, the same bank they had visited together when they opened their joint account. Confusion swept over her. What was this? She unfolded the note, her hands shaking. A cold shiver traveled down her spine as she read the words carved in Jake's familiar handwriting. Mia, I'm sorry, I have to leave. Things are worse than you know. Panic erupted within her. She whispered, her heart racing. Why would Jake write something like this? Her mind spun wildly. What did he mean by worse? Did he take money? Did something happen? Images of their life together flickered through her mind, the laughter, the plans, the shared dreams. Was any of it real? A surge of anger mixed with heartache coursed through her. She felt an urge to throw the note across the room, to shatter the perfect evening she had envisioned. She took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. Focus, Mia. There had to be an explanation. She needed answers, hopefully, the kind that would bring clarity. Without hesitation, she rushed to the small desk where they kept their papers. Her fingers fumbled through old bills and receipts, searching for anything that could shed light on this dark moment. And then she found it, another envelope, a bill from the bank. Once again, that glaring logo stared back at her. Her pulse quickened as she tore it open, revealing a bank statement. The numbers swam before her eyes. Her breath caught as she spotted several large withdrawals, the figures glaring like red flags. The realizations hit her hard, a sum far above what they would normally spend. Had he been lying? What was going on in Jake's life? She whispered into the empty kitchen, feeling a mix of disbelief and betrayal. The anger surged again, bubbling up until she couldn't ignore it. She picked up her phone and dialed his number, a mix of dread and fury carrying her through each ring. Jake finally answered, his voice surprisingly casual, like nothing was wrong. What's going on, Jake? We need to talk. Her words shot out like bullets, no trace of calm left. Note, he asked, confusion clinging to his voice. The one on the table, there was a tense silence on the other end. His voice trailed off, and when he continued, there was a tremor. Mia, I can explain. Explain what? How you've drained our savings. Not like that. I wasn't trying to hide anything. I thought I could handle it, he stumbled, desperation creeping in. Her voice trembled, anger mixing with fear. "You're not making sense. I can't do this over the phone," he said finally, his words flowing with urgency. "I'll be home soon. Time." With that, she hung up, her heart pounding so hard it echoed in her ears. What was happening? She felt a whirlwind of emotions building inside: confusion, anger, betrayal. She paced the small kitchen, feeling trapped by the very walls that reminded her of their shared life. Just yesterday, they had been so carefree, planning their future, and now it felt like everything was built on a foundation of sand. No, she refused to let life unravel this way. She had to prepare herself for the conversation that was about to unfold, even if she didn't know what the outcome would be. Time dragged as she waited for Jake to return. Each second felt stretched thin. The familiar sounds of their neighborhood faded into the background, replaced by the steady tick of the clock ticking away the moments of her uncertainty. She pictured him arriving, carrying yet another half-truth, and it made her stomach turn. Finally, she heard the front door click open, and Jake stepped inside, looking more frazzled than she'd ever seen him. "Hey," he said, but there was no warmth in his voice. "Let's get straight to it," Mia snapped, her heart racing. "Mia, let's just sit down for a minute," he pleaded, stepping into the kitchen but not coming closer. "No, this isn't a conversation where we sit and sip tea." He hesitated, almost as if searching for the right words, but Mia didn't want to give him the luxury of time. After a long, torturous pause, Jake finally spoke, his gaze flicking away. "I didn't want you to see me that way," he admitted, the vulnerability painted across his features. "I thought I could control it, I thought." She pressed, her heart racing. Taking a deep breath, he finally met her gaze. "I lost my job a few months ago," he confessed, the words heavy with shame. "Instead of telling you, I tried to forge my own path, took a few side jobs, but it spiraled." His words hit her like a punch, and it took every ounce of strength in her not to crumble. Asked, voice trembling. "Please, Mia," he continued, desperation filling his tone. "I didn't mean for it to get this far. I thought I could find another job quickly. I didn't want you to worry." She couldn't hold back the anger. "You betrayed my trust." "I see that now," he whispered, showing her just a glimpse of understanding. But the emotional distance felt insurmountable. How had they gone from planning their future to standing on such shaky ground? She asked, the words bitter on her tongue. "I promise that's all of it," he stammered, his expression earnest. "Ruin it, you've already done that," she said, her voice breaking. Each word felt like a chain wrapped around her heart, holding her back from everything she once believed. "You left a note, Jake, a note saying you needed to leave. I didn't want to put you through the stress," he said, voice filled with anguish. "I honestly thought I could handle it on my own. Situations like these usually don't end well, and I..." The tension hung thick in the air, a suffocating weight that wrapped around them. "And what's next?" "No, I want to fix this," he pled, his voice shaky. "I'll talk to the bank and confront what I owe." Tears pricked at her eyes, the mixture of anger and sorrow swirling like a storm inside her. "Jake, trust isn't something you can just earn back overnight. I promise I'll face the consequences of my actions," he said earnestly. "Maybe it's not that simple, Jake," she whispered, her heart aching. "You've built a wall between us." As she said the words, Mia saw a flicker of hope dim in Jake's eyes, but there was still that flickering concern, as if he realized the gravity of what was at stake. With every passing moment, the room felt heavier, the weight of their reality swallowed by silence. She needed to gather her thoughts, and he needed to face what he had done. "Let's take a break for tonight," she finally said, turning away. He nodded slowly, his face a mask of regret as he stepped back. The door closed behind him with a soft click, leaving her alone in the kitchen, a whirlwind of emotions swirling around like a storm. As night fell, the shadows grew longer, carrying with them the weight of their unresolved issues. Mia felt lost, trapped in a world that seemed to shift beneath her feet. Each tick of the clock felt like a countdown to something she wasn't prepared for, something she couldn't control. Minutes turned into hours, and as she sat at the kitchen table, the notes sprawled in front of her, the bank statements, the hastily scrawled letter, each piece felt like a ghost haunting her. She pulled one of the notes closer, reading it over and over again. The betrayal felt too big to swallow, yet she couldn't shake the memories of love and laughter that still lingered in her heart. What would tomorrow look like? What would their lives become? The clock struck midnight, and with a jolt, Mia felt her phone buzz against the table, pulling her from her swirling thoughts. One new message. It was from Jake. "I'm sorry, Mia. I'm going to start by talking to the bank first thing in the morning. I'll remember what you've said." Her heart ached at the simplicity of the words, yet beneath that simple message was an ocean of pain and uncertainty. As she lay down, her mind buzzed with possibilities. Would he really follow through? Could they rise from this turmoil, or was this the beginning of the end? With these thoughts floating through her mind, sleep eluded her. The night felt darker than usual, filled with unanswered questions and challenges looming on the horizon. Morning would come, but it wouldn't bring easy answers. And as the darkness pressed in, she knew whatever the next day brought would change everything. She could feel the weight of uncertainty in the air, a tension that might pull them apart or draw them closer. In that quiet stillness, she grasped for a flicker of hope as she drifted into a restless sleep, knowing tomorrow would demand a confrontation with both their fears and their love. And with that knowledge came the awareness that the journey ahead was fraught with challenges, requiring all the strength they could muster. But as Mia drifted off, she held onto a whisper of a dream one where love triumphed over chaos as they confronted the shadows that had crept between them. The cliffhanger of their lives hung heavy, setting the stage for what came next. Because the truth was that the morning would bring the answers they both needed, and the paths they would choose would determine their fate.